Oh, yes. What's happening, everybody? It's Tuesday night. It's 10 o'clock Central Time. We have a UFC card coming up this Saturday, UFC Vegas 71, headlined by an absolute cracker of a heavyweight matchup between Sergey Pavlovich and Curtis Blaydes. This is going to be a fun card. We got 12 fights to talk about tonight, and it is like we always do on Tuesday night, when we got the smoking jacket on, got a cold beverage here of water tonight. We got fights to break down that are coming up on Saturday, so it's time for Just the Tip with me, your host, Uncle Weezy. I've got a Patreon where I put all these stats that you see on my program. They are available for download so that you can have access to this kind of data to help you make better gambling decisions. We got the prop template there. We've got the distance striking statistics there. It's a really great place to start with all your research, that you can not only look at the tape, but look at the data that is behind, what your eyes are seeing on tape, because sometimes your eyes can trick you a little bit, and the statistics will lead you in a really good path and allow you to make more reasonable decisions that are backed up by data. But I appreciate all you guys hanging out tonight. See 13 of you already joining me live here at 10 o'clock Central Time for Just the Tip. And we got a lot of work to do here. Last week, let me share my screen with you guys here. Last week, I was down a little bit here, 1.15 units. The greasy four-leg parlay fell completely flat. Only one of the legs cashed. The ass shaving of the week fell completely flat. Dustin Jacoby. My three choices that were behind Dustin Jacoby were actually Billy Quarantillo, Tanner Bozer, and Chris Gutierrez. So, I couldn't get anything right last week. So, even though we were down 1.15 units, we lost 1 unit on the Aaron Phillips money line at plus 170. Thought Aaron won about 4 minutes of the second round, but then he got smoked in the last 30 seconds of it. I thought he easily won the third round. Not a bad bet at plus 170. I thought it was a fairly close fight, but I scored it for Bolanos. And then we had a 1 unit at plus 135 on the Nicolau Brandon Royval under 2.5 rounds that cashed easily. And then we got a 1.5 unit parlay, which was the over 2.5 rounds in the Edwards Pudilova fight and the over 2.5 rounds in the Algeo Brown fight. That did not cash. So we were down 1.15 units on the week. I'm kind of proud of the bankroll management this week, because if I had bet all my reads, which were very weak reads, and, I wasn't confident on a lot of fights last week, I would have lost a lot more. But when you're not confident, there's no reason to force anything. I only had 3.5 units of tracked action last week. So I did not force anything. And I had decent reads, I guess, but, nothing that should have had me up money, I guess. So we're going to move on to this week. I've got a lot of plays that I'll be sharing with you later on in the night that we got up here, but we'll get to that once we start breaking down these fights. What's up with you guys in the chat here today? Let's see. I know we got my guy Lou Betya up in the room, who has been on fire lately with the yam bag bets, saying this card is a barn burner, Weezy. Protect your yam bags at all costs. That's what we're here to do. That's why we have to really concentrate on bankroll management each and every week, not force things. Be very careful about when we lay juice, and play those plus money spots that are definitely underpriced. So we're going to be protecting our yam bags, and we're going to be firing that gun when we do see shots that we think are open, clear, and ready to injure those bookies by making them give us a lot of money. We got Jeff K in the room saying cats, dabs, and just the tip. Let's go, Jeff. Anthony W saying, I feel privileged to know what a yam bag is thanks to Lou Betya. He is the originator of the yam bag shot, and he's been on fire with it lately, and he's having a fantastic year. Don't sleep on my man, Lou Betya. Kid is off to a hell of a start this year. And we got DJ in the room saying, oi, yes, everyone's favorite uncle. Let's get it. Hope we can finally get a week without one fight being completely fucked up by the judges. Let's hope so. But you know what the best way to ensure that is? Violence. Because judges can't fuck up fights that have been finished inside the distance. So hopefully we see some violence this week. Hopefully we get the judges out of the equation and allow these fighters to decide who won these fights. We got Daz Files in the room saying, oh, and we got Victor De Jesus in the room saying, oh, yes. What's up, Weezy in chat? What's up, Victor? Good to see you in here. Good to see all the usuals up in here today saying, and Anthony W saying, oi, brother. Daz File saying, smooth Jimmy in the house. Yes, he is. We got Cole Stein saying, oi, Weezy, let's eat. We got the flapjacks emoji there. Let's stack them high. We got my guy David Milks in the room. Hope you're doing well, David. Good to see you up in here saying, oi, let's flap some jacks. Let's get it, Dave. We got Anthony W saying, I was roasting Ion all week, and he goes and wins. I feel your pain. I feel your pain, brother Weezy. Yeah, man. Look, I mean, we all know that Ion is always dangerous early in fights. He's a load to deal with in that first round. But Bozer was getting up. Like all of a sudden now, Keith Peterson is stopping fights early. It's kind of funny how that's happening. But either way, I mean, congrats to Ion Kutalaba. Yeah, it was a great finish. It was a great performance. And I'm looking forward to seeing more of Tanner Bozer down at 205. I think he'll do really good there, and he looks great there. He looks like his body is perfect for that weight class. We got Andy in the room saying, "Oh, what's up, Andy?" We got Real Champions TV saying, "Uncle Weezy, you are a genius. Good analysis. Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Real. Thanks for hanging out." Sparring with Reality saying this card is so volatile. Dude, I agree with you, Luke, and it's volatile, but I'll tell you something, man. I have got a lot of plus money spots lined up for this week that stuck out like sore thumbs to me. So I'm hoping that volatility does play into this card and a lot of those plus money spots cash for me. We got Matt Chalk in the room saying, oi. We got Nigel Lee in the room saying, what's up, Weezy and gang? Just got home to catch a live. Good to see you up in here, Nigel. Thanks for hanging out. We got Nick Sisson in the room saying, all right, Weezy, the man, the myth, the legend, the greatest analytical mind MMA world has ever known. That is a very high compliment. It is completely untrue, but I appreciate the kind words. I am fairly good with analytics, and I am one of the minds that goes over these lines, over these fights, tries to figure out ways to make money, but there's a lot out there better than me, and some of them are in the chat right now. You guys, we got a lot of work to do. Let's get into it here. Let's break down all 12 of these fights from a stats and a tape study perspective. I've got notes on all of them for you, and we'll go fight by fight, pick these things, and I'll let you know what lines are sticking out for us here so that we can figure out how to make these bookies cry, beat them with a bag of oranges until we juice those oranges, and then have a nice, refreshing glass of orange juice over their squirming, half-dead corpses while we drink that beautiful glass of winning, which we're going to do this week. I'm looking for 5 units this week. I want to cash big, you guys. So let's put in that work. Let's grind it out. Let's talk some fights. And we are going to start tonight with Brady Hiestand versus Danaa Batgerel. So let's first start talking about Brady Hiestand here. Let me see how these stats look on the screen. Maybe I can zoom in a little bit more for you guys. I've already got it at 125%. Nah, that looks pretty good. So, okay, let's leave it right there. Let's first start talking about Brady Hiestand. Brady's almost 24 years old now, so the kid is still very, very young in his career. He fights out of Sick Jitsu in Washington. He's got a 6-2 professional record. 4 of those 6 wins coming inside the distance, a couple of submissions, a couple of knockouts. He was also in the Ultimate Fighter House, where he got an exhibition wins over Josh Reddinghouse, who's a good veteran, and Vince Murdoch. Brady's a grappler. He constantly is chain wrestling and looking to get to his opponent's back and looks to win minutes with his grappling way more than he does with his striking. While he's on the feet, Brady moves well laterally. He stays on the outside. He moves his head well. He looks to control range with his kicks, especially his switch kick to the head. Brady makes it difficult for his opponents to engage on the feet, and he rarely stands in the pocket looking to exchange. When his opponents get frustrated with him skirting around the outside of the octagon, they'll try to rush in to close the distance, and that's when Brady shoots his low leg takedown entries. He kind of reminds me of Mateusz Gamrot, the way he enters on his takedown attempts and looks to scramble to get top position. Brady knows what his strengths and weaknesses are as a fighter, and his style, it plays to his strengths well. Brady is 9 out of 19 on his takedown attempts, and he averages 4.5 takedowns per 15 minutes. Brady's fights are in control time positions almost 70% of the time, and he's winning 80% of those control time positions. He's great at initiating grappling exchanges, either with pressure or distant management, and he has been successful making strikers fight at his pace and his style. Brady hasn't fought top-notch competition yet. However, he's still just 23 years old. He's improving, so who knows how high his ceiling can get as he rounds out his skill set while trying to make his opponents fight his fight where he's currently most comfortable now. And his opponent's going to be Danaa Batgerel, 33-year-old boxer out of Mongolia who is training at Fight Ready in Arizona. He's 12-4 as a professional, with 10 of those 12 wins coming inside the distance. He's got 8 knockouts and he's got 2 submissions. Danaa is 3-3 in the UFC, and all 3 of his wins come by way of first-round knockout. Obviously, Batgerel has heavy hands. He's got 3 knockdowns in 6 UFC fights, and all 3 of those knockdowns resulted in a knockout win. However, Danaa isn't just a moment winner on the feet. He's definitely capable of winning minutes there as well, as Danaa stays way busier than his opponents, as he's throwing 16.43 distant strike attempts per minute, while his opponents only throw 9.31 for a positive 7.123 distant strike attempt differential and a positive 1.06 distance strike differential. Danaa definitely wants to keep fights standing, and he has good takedown defense. He stopped 6 of the 9 takedown attempts against him, and he's only been controlled for 7% of his UFC cage time. This will be his first UFC fight against a grappler, though. So it will be interesting to see who wins the stylistic matchup here and which fighter gets the fight they need to be successful. Danaa has fought a solid level of competition at the UFC level. However, his UFC wins are against guys who have a combined 6-win and 16-loss UFC record. So it still remains to be seen how high Danaa's ceiling is with his current skill set of being a boxer who uses his wrestling in reverse to keep fights standing. So in summary, Brady Hiestand is going to be 10 years younger. He's going to be 1 inch taller, and he's got a 1-inch reach advantage in this spot. He's the better and more committed wrestler here, as well as submission grappler, in my opinion. This is really a clash of styles, and who wins this fight will likely come down to which fighter implements their game plan. Danaa is the more experienced fighter overall and at the UFC level. He's been the better finisher both overall and at the UFC level. Danaa has the better striking. He stays busier than his opponents, and he will definitely have the technical boxing and power advantages in this spot. Danaa has also faced a better level of competition, not only at the UFC, but overall as well. I like Brady to win this fight, though. I love the youth, I love the size, and I love the grappling advantages that he has here. We haven't seen Danaa's grappling defense really be tested yet at the UFC level. The only guy to really wrestle him was Haley Alatang. Alatang had 3 takedowns in the 3rd round of that fight against him, and he finished the round on top. But that was a long time ago. So Danaa is almost definitely making improvements over at Fight Ready. And Haley is a guy who also trains over at Fight Ready and who is a wrestler. But, you know, the first 2 rounds of that fight, Haley didn't wrestle at all. It was in the 3rd when he started mixing in the wrestling that he had a really big round, wound up getting that decision win in that fight. But, you know, I still think that this is going to be a really close fight. And I lean to the youth and the relentless grappling of Brady Hiestand here. I'm interested to see how Danaa's grappling defense holds up against somebody that is going to be relentless with the pressure, relentless with the chain wrestling. Those low leg entries are very interesting, and he always is trying to get to his opponent's back, and he can win a bunch of minutes there. I do have a bet on this fight. I bet 1 unit on the Brady Hiestand money line, but I got it a lot earlier. Probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago, actually, I got it at plus 170. And right now, the line on this fight, I forgot to put the banners up for you guys here. Brady's plus 117 and Danaa Bakary is minus 137. I don't really like the Brady Hiestand line at plus 117, though. I liked it a lot more at plus 117. I think it was worth a shot there. Here, I would leave it alone. I'm picking Brady to win this fight. I think he wins it by decision, but I wouldn't be surprised if Danaa even was able to win a decision, just because the judges really haven't been scoring grappling at all lately. Takedowns and control time, back takes, those things have been, kind of slipping through the cracks, and they haven't been scored lately. But that doesn't mean that they don't matter, and that, we're not going to see them start getting scored again. But Danaa does have good takedown defense. He's the more experienced guy. He will be better while this fight is on the feet, definitely more dangerous. So I think it's a very close fight. I'm edging with Hiestand. I love the fact that he's 10 years younger than this guy. I love the fact that, we're going to find out a lot about Batgerel's grappling defense here, because he does definitely hasn't had much in terms of have that being tested thus far at the UFC level, because he's only had 9 takedowns attempted against him in 6 fights. And most of them came in the 3rd round of that Haley fight, where he gave up a bunch of time and control time. So, yeah, going with Brady Hiestand to win this fight by decision here. And I will go to the Tapology page. We'll scroll down here, and there's Brady, handsome kid, and we're going to pick him to win by decision. God, he just does not look like a fighter. He looks like such a nice kid, right? I remember I was saying on Stat Diggers, like the first time that he fought, that he looks like he should be giving like a speech to like a Christian camp, where kids go, and he's up there with his girlfriend talking about the joys of abstinence to a bunch of 13-year-olds. Like, that's what he looks like. But man, I mean, he's just getting better and better. He's relentless with the grappling, and I think the kid's got a high ceiling, and he's still only almost 24 years old. So really looking forward to seeing him in there. And we got Anthony saying big old glass of cash. We got Black Milton saying, yo, Uncle Weezy, definitely missed on one of my lines, DK. Billy Q cost you boys some money. Dude, yeah. That was an absolutely perfect knee by Edson Barbosa there. And I think that as the fight went on, we would have seen Billy having more and more success with the pressure, with the volume. But man, oh man, he really got caught there, and that's part of the game, man. It is what it is. But I still think that Quarantillo was a good read. Sparring with Reality saying Brady has KO loss coming soon. Not sure this is the spot though. Dude, his striking needs to get better. And he moves his head a lot. He moves laterally a lot. He seems to do a decent job of managing range and throwing those head kicks to kind of keep, stay in his opponent's head. But man, yeah, and Danaa could absolutely be the one. But yeah, you can't be sneery as saying Brady's striking is interesting. Yeah, but the great thing is, if you don't like Brady's striking, you can be very confident that he's gonna keep going to the wrestling over and over and over again until he has success, or until he gets snatched up in a choke, or until he gets knocked out. So I like getting the plus money on Brady, because I know I can count on him to do what he needs to do in order to win the fight. He's not going to turn into a striker overnight, especially not against this guy. Sparring, this is the fight it happens. It might be, man. I think Danaa is going to damage Brady throughout the fight, and it's going to hinder his ability to grapple consistently. That could absolutely be the case, Anthony, because Danaa hits hard, and there is no denying that. But the next fight, we've got the very handsome Priscila Cachoeira, plus 167, squaring off against Karine Killer Silva, minus 192. The fight doesn't go to decision, sitting up at minus 200. I want to go to Sherdog. And let's see here. Let's go. Let's see. I want to get this Pavlovich versus Blaydes, because I love Karine Silva's picture on Sherdog. Look at that afro. Look at how ass Karine Killer Silva looks in that picture. We're going to keep that one up on the screen while we talk about this young lady here. Yeah, but she's a big favorite, minus 192. Priscila Cachoeira, plus 167 here. And the fight doesn't go to decision. Juiced to the tits at minus 200, but I think with very good reason. Let's first start talking about my girl, zombie girl, Priscila Cachoeira here. She's a 34-year-old striker training out of Team Figueiredo in Brazil. She's got a 12-4 professional record. 7 of those 12 wins coming inside the distance by way of knockout. Cachoeira is 4-4 in the UFC, 3 wins by knockout, and she's lost by submission twice to Valentina Shevchenko and to Jillian Robertson. Priscila is 5-2 in her career in decisions, but only 1-2 in her UFC fights that have went to decision. Zombie Girl looks to keep fights standing. She walks forward like Michael Myers with a machete. She keeps her right hand right up by her chin, and she's got cocked and ready to throw at all times with very malicious intentions. Priscila definitely has rare power for a flyweight. She's landed 2 knockdowns in her 8 UFC fights, and she has 3 wins in the UFC by knockout. So she can definitely knock out her opponents when the fight is on the feet. The striking defense and distance striking differentials are not good. A negative 2.46 distance striking differential and a 52% striking defense aren't the kind of numbers that will win you minutes, but she hits so hard that she could afford to lose minutes waiting to land that big shot because she tends to land it when she's given the time and opportunity to do so. 66% of Priscila's 71 minutes in the UFC cage are spent at distance striking range, where she does her best work and where she's at her most dangerous. Priscila has had problems when her opponents take her down. She loses 91% of the control time positions that she's been in. So she's definitely doing her best work. Or wait a second. I'm sorry. Hang on just a second, guys. Priscila's had problems when her opponents take her down. She loses 91% of the control time positions that she's been in, and she has 1 UFC takedown while allowing 9 takedowns. In Priscila's 4 UFC losses, she's allowing 34% control time against on 5 takedowns allowed. So she definitely does her best work when fights stay on the feet and she's able to land that big bomb. Priscila has faced a solid level of competition overall, but her wins aren't great as they come over ladies with a combined 11 win and 22 loss record. And her average UFC win is over a fighter with a record of 2.75 wins and 5.25 losses. But Cachoeira really has only lost a really good competition. Valentina Shevchenko, Molly McCann, Jillian Robertson, and then Luana Carolina. And 3 of those 4 ladies won by taking her down. The only one to beat her without getting a takedown was Luana Carolina. And this young lady that you see on the screen right here, that's Karine the Killer Silva. She is a 29-year-old fighter. She's training out of Hile Ribeiro team in Brazil. She's got a 15-4 professional record. Ooh, let me get... Sorry, we don't need to see the Danaa Brady stats. We need to see the Cachoeira Silva stats. Okay, so Karine, 29 years old, Hile Ribeiro team. She's 15-4, all 15 wins, a 100% finish rate inside the distance here. 9 knockouts, 6 submissions for Karine. She's got an average fight time of 4.95 minutes. And she is currently on a 6-fight win streak. She earned the nickname Killer by putting several of her opponents in the hospital. She broke City Roach's arm, and she destroyed Simone Duarte's leg with a nasty reverse heel hook, both of them back in 2020. Karine is dangerous everywhere. She's got solid kickboxing. She throws her punches straight and with power. In addition, she's got a nasty submission game that hospitalizes her opponents. We don't have much data to go on. From what we see on tape, though, and in the stats, we know for a fact no matter where the fight goes, Karine has the tools to finish the fight when it gets there. She's got 19 fights, almost 100 minutes in the pro cage over her 9-plus year pro career, and she started at the age of 19. Her pro losses are to Marina Moroz, Diani Barbosa, Marina Mokhtanina, and then someone named Elaine Albuquerque, which was in her pro debut back in 2013, and when she would have been 19 years old. Karine is experienced, she's well-rounded, and she's dangerous. Now we need to see how she fares against UFC level competition and whether she can round out her MMA game and win minutes as well as moments. So in summary here, Priscila is more experienced as a professional. She's got 55 more minutes in the pro cage. She's got 7 more fights at the UFC level and over 65 more minutes in the UFC cage. Priscila has definitely faced the better brand of competition in her career, and she will most likely be the more dangerous striker while this fight is on the feet due to the fact that she has proven power at this level with 2 knockdowns and 3 knockout wins at the UFC level. Karine Silva's 5 years younger. She's got a 2-inch reach advantage, and she's been a pro for 3 more years and has 3 more pro fights than Priscila, despite having less cage time as a pro and less UFC experience. I also believe that Zombie Girl is more durable and will have the better conditioning, as we have seen Priscila go the distance 7 times in her career, while for Silva, it's only once in 19 fights, and that was a losing effort for Silva. Karine is the more dangerous and diverse finisher. She's got a 100% finish rate, including 6 wins by submission, which is how Priscila has lost 50% of her 4 pro losses. She's been subbed twice. Karine will be the better wrestler, more dangerous submission grappler, and far more likely to win minutes in control time positions. This is a great all-action fight right here. I love violence, and the fight doesn't go to decision or the under 2.5 rounds are great spots in my opinion. I feel as if Karine needs an early sub here, or she's going to gas out and get finished by strikes, breaking under Priscila's pressure and powerful right hand. I'm picking the very handsome Priscila Cachoeira, the Zombie Girl, to win this fight by 2nd round knockout. I'm really looking forward to this fight. I think this is fantastic matchmaking. I think Karine Silva is a fantastic addition to the UFC family here. And I definitely love her, the fact that she's a finisher. And I love the fact that Cachoeira is handsome and powerful. And she's got a ton of heart. She's very durable. There's no quit in her. And I think that durability, that willingness to fight through adversity is going to serve her really well against a front-loaded finisher like Karine Silva. So I think Cachoeira is going to give Karine kind of like the UFC vet lesson here, outlast her in the first round, and then kind of put that pressure on in the second and really break Karine Silva. Kind of like Hiestand was doing to Karine Silva before she wound up in that guillotine choke. And you could see Karine really slowing down in that fight too. So we will see how that one goes. But I also have a 1-unit bet on the Priscila Cachoeira money line. Got that at plus 167. And, big plus money bet. I think she's more experienced. I think she's more powerful on the feet. She's fought the better level of competition. She's just got to stay out of the nasty submissions of Karine Silva, and I think she will outlast her and get the dub here. All right. The next fight is going to be William Gomis, the Jaguar, plus 175, squaring off against Francis the Fire Marshal at minus 205. The fight doesn't go to decision. Minus 105 for this fight. So let's get the stats up here. We got Marshall and Gomis here. And we've got the lines. Yep, we got it there for you guys. Let me see what's going on here in the chat real quick. We got Moyes here in the room with the oi. And let's see. You can't be serious is riding with Silva inside the distance. Too dangerous for sure. Sparring with reality, saying Silva getting walked down by that Chinese chick, pretty concerning, but Cachoeira horrible on the bottom. Yes. Yeah, and Silva's going to need to get that early takedown. And but I think if she doesn't get it done in the first, man, she's definitely going to have problems here. We got Marco in the room saying, oi. And we got Breezy saying, oi, what's up, Uncle Weezy? Ass shaving of the week is going to be Pavlovich. Dude, that's going to be such a good fight, Pavlovich versus Blaydes. I can't wait for that one. Silva's last 2 wins by submission seem to fall in her lap a little bit, maybe. I mean, she definitely caught she caught Hiestand. She was getting her ass shaved in that fight, but it looked like Kihi had no submission defense there. And Silva tapping to Magdalena's knee bar, deplorable. Well, I don't think she's gonna have to worry about any knee bars there from from Priscila Cachoeira, that's for sure. But yeah, this is going to be a great fight. And so is this one, man. These are 2 very young prospects here, 2 kids with some bright futures that I think have already looked pretty damn good from the tape that I've seen here. We're going to start talking about Francis the Fire Marshall first here. 24-year-old prospect training out of Pellegrino MMA in New Jersey. He's got an undefeated 7-0 pro record, over 70 minutes of pro cage time, and he's finished 5 of those 7 wins inside the distance. He's got 4 submissions, like you would expect out of a Kirk Pellegrino student, and 1 knockout. Francis has nice technical boxing. He throws in combination. He definitely flashes power in those hands. You would also figure training with Kirk Pellegrino that his grappling game would be on point, and you would be correct to assume that with 4 submission wins on his resume. In addition to that, between his Dana White Contender Series fight and UFC debut versus Marcelo Rojo, Francis had 7 takedowns and over 8.5 minutes of control time in just over a 21-minute sample size. So he's doing an excellent job of mixing in his grappling game to help him find multiple paths to victory. Francis has looked like a well-rounded prospect so far with few holes in his game, but we still need to see him take that next step in his very young career by consistently fighting UFC level competition. And he gets another fighter making his second appearance on Saturday in French fighter William Gomis. So Gomis is another young prospect. He's only 25 years of age with a great frame for the featherweight division at 6 feet tall with a 73-inch reach. William has 13 professional fights. He's got an 11-2 pro record with 7 of those 11 wins coming inside the distance. He's a little more knockout heavy, while Marshall's more of a submission guy here. Is Gomis has got 1 win by submission and 6 wins by knockout. So Gomis has got a Sanda background, and he stays long when he strikes. He usually kind of throws 1 strike at a time, but whether it's his kicks or the straight left that he throws, with power and purpose, it always comes. William can definitely be low volume, but he does have power, and he does have the ability to maintain range with his kicks and his long frame. In a 1 fight sample size, William showed the ability to win minutes on the feet against Jarno Aarons as he outlanded Jarno 27-15 and showing 68% striking defense. Gomis has a well-rounded game because he mixes in the wrestling and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in order to win minutes by getting top control and trying to take his opponents back standing. He also showed off some nasty ground and pound at the end of the first round of the Yakubov fight on the regional scene in order to get the finish. So he has the ability to be able to finish fights on the ground, even though he only has 1 career win by submission. Gomis got 5 takedowns versus Aarons, and he controlled them for almost 54% of the fight, and he won 97% of the control time positions against a judo brown belt. And he also showed the ability to win minutes on the ground in his regional scene footage. William is on a 9-fight win streak right now. He hasn't lost since 2016, and his only 2 pro losses came to solid French fighters in Saladin Parnasse and Morgan Chartier. Williams' regional scene resume is solid. He's still young. He's still rounding out his game. He's definitely an interesting prospect with good minute-winning potential in his grappling game and moment-winning potential in his striking game. So, in summary here, Francis the Fire Marshall is 1.5 years younger. He's got the better finish rate, and he's undefeated as a professional. While this fight is on the feet, Francis will be the busier striker, but in the very small sample size we have for him, Francis is showing really poor distance striking accuracy and defense, but he did finish his fight by KO. He scored a knockdown as well. So, it's a small sample size, but we can see here, you guys, 4.35 distance strikes landed per minute spent at distance and almost 7 absorbed. And yet he was getting outlanded by about 2.6 distance strikes per minute that they spent at distance. Now, it was only 3.45 minutes, so we can't read too much into it, but that's with him throwing almost 21 strike attempts per minute, while Rojo was only throwing 11.32. So that's what brings about this 20% distance striking accuracy in that small sample size, and that terrible 38.5% distance striking defense. So we do need to see Francis start to show UFC level striking against UFC level opponents. But William Gomis, on the other hand, now he's 3 inches taller. He's got a 1-inch reach advantage here. He's got 6 more professional fights, over 50 more minutes in the pro cage, and he's got 4 more years as a pro fighter. I think William is the better distance manager, more diverse striker, and he has more weapons while this fight is on the feet with his traditional martial arts background. He showed the ability to win minutes and manage distance well in his debut with a positive 1.79 distance striking differential and 68% distance striking defense. Both guys are good wrestlers and win minutes in the grappling exchanges. Francis is going to have better freestyle wrestling entries, while Williams has the body lock trips. William has the body lock trips, and that's how he usually gets his takedowns. Both guys are good at getting to their opponents' backs, but William does that well standing, while Francis gets there more on the mat. I'll give Gomis the strength of schedule advantage here. I think this is a really close fight and that the line is entirely too wide here. I'm going to pick Gomis to win the minutes and potentially the moments on the feet here, especially if Marshall doesn't shore up his striking defense. And I think these guys are very close in the grappling, to be honest with you. So their ability to win minutes there, in my opinion, is going to be just as likely for Gomis as it is for Marshall. So I favor Gomis's length. I favor his experience. I favor the tougher strength of schedule. And I favor the striking advantage that he has here. So I'm going to pick William Gomis to win this fight by decision. And once again, I have moneyline bets on the first 3 fights of the night, you guys. I've got a 1-unit bet on the Brady Hiestand money line. I've got at plus 170. I've got a 1-unit bet on the Priscila Cachoeira money line at plus 167. And I've got a 1-unit bet on the William Gomis money line at plus 180. So 3 fat plus money spots to start off the card. Let's hope that they all hit for your Uncle Weezy, and there will be a party at Weezy's going on Saturday night, ladies and gentlemen. Moy is saying that Gomes going to frustrate this young kid. I hope you're right, my man. I got Luke saying Gomes live dog, in my opinion, doesn't really absorb strikes and doesn't really get wrestled. Marshall doesn't move his head, man. I'm with you, dude. I bet Gomes. I am right there with you. Let's see. We got Nigel saying always a solid looking betting on the more handsome female. Pays off in the long run. Very profitable. You got to be. Yeah, I mean, like, look, last week, if you were on that very handsome Gomez, she absolutely shaved the ass of Bruno Brasil and made it look really good. Second round, I mean, like, just a complete ass kicking from pillar to post. She's a very handsome fighter with a great neck tattoo. So, yeah, I'm on Cachoeira here, too. That's great analysis, Nigel Lee. Hey, we're stronger together when we share information, when we're here in the chat, bouncing ideas off each other. This is how we stack them, you guys. So let's keep working here. Let's get to this next fight, which is going to be Junior Tafa at minus 114 squaring off against Mohammed the Motor Usman at minus 106. This is the battle of the little brothers. We got Justin Tafa's little brother squaring off against Kamaru Usman's little brother. Although Kamaru Usman smaller than his smaller brother, who's the bigger man in size, that is. So, yeah, very interesting fight here. Looking forward to breaking this down with you guys. So here we've got the stats. Now we got Junior Tafa making his debut, so we don't really have any stats on him. But let's first start talking about Mohammed Usman. Brother of Kamaru is a 34-year-old heavyweight. He's 6'2". He's got a 79-inch reach, so he's got good size for the division. He's got an 8-2 pro record, 10 pro fights, 6 of those 8 wins coming inside the distance. He's got 4 knockouts, and he's got 2 submissions. Mo's got a functional stand-up striking game for a heavyweight. He uses his meat and potatoes weapons, including jabs to the body and the head, overhand rights, and check left hooks. He did a good job of winning minutes at striking range in the Tough House against Mitchell Sipe and Eduardo Perez. And he got the nod in both of those fights without showing any wrestling at all. He does have legit power, like most heavyweights, and he showed it off versus Pauga in his UFC debut as a plus 230 underdog. Mo can wrestle, which is rare for a heavyweight, and he has the rare ability to be able to push a wrestling heavy pace for the full 15 minutes as well, which we saw in the regional scene due to the fact that he's got very good conditioning for a heavyweight. This allows him to be able to have the energy to wrestle when the matchup dictates that he do so, and also win minutes in the striking exchanges as the fight goes on and his opponents slow down. Mo has faced a solid level of competition on the regional scene and in the Tough House, so he's in a good spot to show off his well-rounded MMA game on Saturday versus the debuting fighter in Junior Tafa. Now, Junior is the brother of UFC heavyweight Justin Tafa. He's a 26-year-old, very young heavyweight kickboxer. He's training out of NTG Fight and Fitness in Australia. He's got a 4-0 pro record in MMA, which all have been compiled over the last 8 months. That's how long the career is for Junior Tafa. It's only 8 months at the pro level so far. Well, now it's up to 9 months because I did this spreadsheet about a week ago. But either way, it hasn't been long. Junior is a glory kickboxer with serious power in his hands. And he's never seen the third round in his MMA career. He's fought at a high level as a kickboxer, but as an MMA fighter, his opponents are looking to take him down so they don't have to deal with his stand-up, which is technical and powerful. He will obviously be looking to keep fights standing, land big shots with his hand in the UFC, but it remains to see how Junior will deal with UFC-level heavyweights who can wrestle, because Usman definitely can wrestle, and if we don't see Usman test Tafa's takedown defense, that'll be a huge IQ error for Mohammed. Tafa hasn't faced anyone that would even be close to considered UFC level yet, so there's a lot of missing information on this kid, at only 4-0 as a professional, with less than 1 year of MMA experience. And he's only fought low-level regional scene competition with the obvious exception of his high-level glory and K1 kickboxing experience. So in summary here, Mohammed has the overall experience advantage. He's got 6 more pro fights. He's got 5 more years as a pro, and he was in the Tough House, which is like a crash course in MMA. And he's already went through the process of making his UFC debut and winning that fight. Mohammed will have the wrestling and grappling advantages here, and we've seen Tafa be taken down in 2 different fights on the regional scene. Mo has also faced a better brand of competition in his pro career, and when you've seen him go to decision 3 times as a professional and twice in the Tough House and show off his excellent gas tank for a bricked-up heavyweight. Junior Tafa, though, is 7.5 years younger than Mohammed. He will be the better, more technical, and more dangerous kickboxer here. Mo won't be completely out of his depth on the feet, but if he settles for a distance striking battle against Tafa, that would be stupid, because this kid has got sick power in his hands, you guys. I like the fact that Mo is more experienced. He has legit wrestling and conditioning. He's faced the better brand of competition, but I feel like Mo is going to have to get a ton of control time or be much better on the ground and finish the fight there, because if he doesn't, it's just a matter of time before Tafa shuts his lights out. And if Tafa hits Mo like Zach hit Mo, Mo's going to be going to sleep. So right now, Tafa's money line is around minus 114, and his KO prop is plus 135. So the books are telling you that that Junior Tafa's win condition is landing a big shot, and that Mohammed Usman's is winning minutes with his wrestling, and his Dece, KO, and submission props are all priced similarly. So he's obviously the more well-rounded fighter. That being said, I'm going to actually pick Junior Tafa to win this fight by second round knockout, but with very, very little confidence here. It's a heavyweight fight, so it's difficult to be confident anyway. And there's a lot of missing information on this Junior Tafa kid. I could see Mohammed Usman going out there, getting the takedowns, weathering that early storm. And then when you see Junior maybe have an adrenaline dump after round one, remember, he's coming on a long flight from Australia to Vegas here. And then he's going to be fighting a guy who's already made that debut, fighting a guy who's got better conditioning than him, fighting a guy who's got better wrestling than him. And he's been to a bunch of different camps lately. Mohammed's been over at Fortis. He's been up at Elevation. He's been at Rufus Sport, I think, for this particular camp. So, yeah, Mohammed's been all over the place. And I think he's got more ways to win this fight. But, man, Junior Tafa hits really hard. And I feel like I have to count on Mohammed to get a ton of control time early. And if he doesn't, and he's unable to do that, I think Junior's going to find his chin and he's going to knock him out. So, yeah, I'm picking Tafa to win by knockout, but I don't have any bets on this fight. I'm very low confidence on this spot, and I'm interested to see how Tafa winds up looking here. But picking Tafa to win this by second round knockout, but we'll see how it goes, everybody. All right, the next fight that we're going to talk about is going to be Norma Dump Truck Dumont at -116, squaring off against Karol Rosa at -104. The fight doesn't go to decision, is big time plus money at +250 here. Let's get these stats up on the screen. All right, let me get, sorry, you guys. Right there. Okay. All right, there we go. And let's get those notes up on the screen. Yeah, this line has moved quite a bit, so I'm interested to see what you guys are thinking on this one too. So let's start talking about Karol Rosa. Karol's got that really rare combination of being young and experienced and well-rounded as a mixed martial artist. First of all, she's only 28 years of age, but she's got 20 professional fights already. She's got a 16-4 professional record with over 250 minutes in the pro cage. That's a lot of experience for somebody that's still about a year and 9 months away from being 30. She's been a pro fighter for over 11 years, so she made her pro debut at the age of 17. Karol has an impressive 5-1 UFC record, with all 6 of those fights going to decision. She finished 6 of her 11 regional scene wins, 2 submissions, 4 knockouts, but she hasn't finished any of her 5 UFC wins inside the distance. The stats tell the story of why Karol has been so effective winning fights at the UFC level, and that is because she knows how to win minutes, bank rounds, and get those decision wins due to her diverse skill set. Okay, she's on the feet at distance. Karol has a positive 2.24 distance striking differential. That's excellent. She stays very busy as she's attempting 18.15 distance strike attempts per minute spent at distance. And she's got a positive 2.84 distance strike attempt differential. Her accuracy is excellent at 52%, but her defense leaves a lot to be desired at only 53%. Karol has landed and absorbed 1 knockdown in her 6 UFC fights, so she doesn't have great power, nor is she chinny. Karol does her best work in the grappling exchanges, where over 50% of her 90 minutes of UFC cage time have taken place. Karol averages 1.67 takedowns per 15 minutes. She gets her takedowns at a 50% clip, and she outcontrols her opponents 36% to 15%, winning 70% of the control time positions that she's been in. And if you exclude the Sarah McMahon fight, Karol is only allowed 4.4% control time to her opponents, and she's stuffed 11 of the 12 takedown attempts that she's seen. So she's been really efficient winning minutes on the ground against ladies not named Sarah McMahon. Karol's 5 UFC wins are over ladies with a combined UFC record of 14 wins and 20 losses. And the names are Lara Procopio, Vanessa Mello, Jocelyn Edwards, Cachoeira, and Lena Landsberg. So in my opinion, Rosa is still kind of searching for her signature win, but a 5-1 UFC record is still very impressive. On the other side, we got the dump truck, Norma Dumont, who's a 32-year-old Brazilian fighter who has an 8-2 professional record. 6 of those 10 fights happening at the UFC level, though. So she's been fighting at a very high level for most of her career. 2 of those 8 wins have come inside the distance for Norma, both by submission, and they both came pre-UFC on the regional scene. Norma is very well-rounded, you guys, very well-rounded. And she isn't a bad fighter either. She's winning minutes on the feet. She has a positive 1.88 distance striking differential with 2 knockdowns and 73% distance striking defense. 73% distance striking defense. That's really impressive. And that's over 53 minutes at distance in the UFC cage. So 73%. She's really hard to crack at distance. So let's see. And she stays safe on the feet, only absorbing 2.66 distance strikes per minute. That's about as low as it gets, you guys. So she's fairly low volume, but she's got good leg kicks. She switches stances on the feet, and she's got nice straight punches down the pipe. They're accurate and they're sharp. She has a really nice 1-2. She'll just lead with that 1 and then throw that 2 straight down the pipe, and she has caught people with it. She absolutely dropped Danielle Wolf with that 1-2. It looked perfect. And she did some really nice work at distance against Aspen Ladd, Aspen Ladd's a terrible striker, but Norma really did nice work at distance against her. But she will back up in straight lines, and she does definitely keep her chin high in the air, but it really hasn't cost her yet outside of the Megan Anderson fight. Norma's fights stay at distance striking range about 60% of the time, so her ability to win minutes there and stay defensively safe has been a big secret to her success thus far in the UFC. Norma's fights are in control time positions about 40% of the time, and she's winning 47% of the control time positions that she's been in thus far. The only fighter to really win minutes in the grappling exchanges against Norma was Macy Chiasson, and that's one of Norma's 2 losses. Norma's done a decent job of taking the fight wherever her opponent doesn't want it to be. She stops takedowns at a 70% rate, gets back up when she is taken down, and she's also mixed in the grappling, particularly in the Wolf fight, to win minutes when her opponent is good on the feet. She's faced a solid level of UFC competition, and her wins are about average. Solid, well-rounded fighter who is spectacular nowhere, but also doesn't have any huge holes in her game. So in summary, Karol Rosa is 4 years younger than Norma, and she also has the overall experience advantage with 10 more fights and 125 more minutes in the pro cage. Also over 4 more years as a pro fighter, despite being the younger fighter here. Karol will definitely be the busier striker at range, and she's definitely been more accurate than Norma. However, this fight should be pretty even on the feet. Karol's done a better job of winning minutes in the grappling exchanges, being the busier wrestler, the more consistent winner in control time positions. Karol's moving up a weight class to take this fight, but she shouldn't be that much smaller than Norma. Norma's 2 inches taller than Karol. She should be the more powerful striker while this fight is on the feet, and she's shown much better distance striking defense than Karol has. Norma will definitely be the thicker lady here, and she's fought the slightly better level of competition overall. But her wins are a little bit better than Karol Rosa's wins at the UFC level. I see this as being a close fight, but I think Karol's ability to do more while the fight is on the feet, and I think she has better conditioning to push a grappling heavy game plan here. And if she can find some success there, like Macy Chiasson did, I think Karol can find multiple ways to win the minutes of this fight. And I'm picking Karol Rosa as a result of that to win this fight by decision. I'm kind of surprised by the line movement here because Rosa was a big favorite, right? But let's go to the Tapology page and put that pick in here. We're going to pick Rosa to get that win by decision over Dump Truck Dumont. But if we look here at best fight odds, and we look at that Karol Rosa money line, you can see that she opened up at minus 225 and then immediately went to minus 150, where she stayed for about 2 days. then got up to about minus 130, and she stayed between there and minus 140 for like a week, and then kind of even more money kind of coming in on her here. But just about 2 days ago, all of a sudden, Rosa goes from minus 145 to being minus 103. So a ton of money's coming in on Norma. I don't know if they know anything here. Maybe they like Norma's size. I like the size of one of the parts of her body for sure. But it's a lot of money that's come in on Norma here. And now Karol's getting to be the cheaper fighter. She opened at minus 225. The bookies did that for a reason. And like I say, I think Karol's going to be doing more wherever the fight goes. So I can absolutely see her getting this win. And I think even maybe at plus money, plus 100 on Caesars might be something I'm pulling the trigger on. I'm not terribly confident about it, but I think Karol Rosa is going to get this win. But then the next fight that we're going to talk about is going to be Yahya, the ultra veteran, at plus 420. Going to be squaring off against Montel Quick Jackson at minus 550. Fight doesn't go to decision, juiced up to minus 180 here. All right, let's see. Mr. D saying, I picked Norma, but after film, I'm leaning Rosa. Yeah, Rosa is going up in weight class. Yeah, Daz saying Norma, let's go. Let's see. It was Daz. Daz moved the line. That's why. No wonder. Daz put that money in, and let's go. Let's see here. I hate that I have to pick one of these guys from my DraftKings lineup. Fight probably gets called off at 4:15 anyway. You got to be kidding. Let's hope that doesn't happen. And I am the one, the only one. Don't need no gun. This is his first time in here catching it live. Let's go, man. It's good to see you in here hanging out. So let's first start talking about Yahya here. He is a 38-year-old ultra veteran of the sport of MMA. He's a Brazilian jiu-jitsu specialist. He's got a 28-10 1-1 record as a pro, with 21 of those 28 wins coming inside the distance, all 21 of them by submission. He's never once recorded a knockout. Hani has never been finished in the UFC, and he's compiled an impressive 11-3-1-1 record over 16 UFC fights and 181 minutes in the UFC cage. Hani's a pure grappler. However, if you look at his distance striking numbers, he's actually outlanding his opponents there. Sorry, I didn't get these up for you guys here. There we go. Sorry, I didn't have those stats up for you. He's got a positive 1.09 distance striking differential with 61.5% distance striking defense. He's never landed a knockdown, and he's been dropped 3 times in 16 fights. Hani does a great job of getting fights into the grappling exchanges. 70% of his 180-plus minutes in the UFC cage has been spent in control time positions, and Hani's winning over 60% of those positions while getting 3.06 takedowns per 15 minutes and attempting 1.66 submissions per 15 minutes. So Hani finds ways to make his opponents fight his fight. In Hani's 11 UFC wins, he's winning 73% of the control time positions. But in his draws and in his losses at the UFC level, he's winning only 27% of the control time positions. So Hani needs to win in that area of the fight in order to have success. He's faced what could only be described as a very low level, though, of competition over his UFC career. His only UFC win over a guy with a winning UFC record was his last fight against Kyung Ho Kang. Outside of that fight, his other 10 UFC wins are against dudes with a combined record of 15 wins and 36 losses at the UFC level. So if Yahya beats Montel Jackson on Saturday, it will be by far the best win of his UFC career, and it would be safe to say that at 38 years of age, Yahya would finally be peaking as an athlete and as a fighter. But that's if he beats Montel Quick Jackson. And let's talk about Montel. He's a big fucking problem for the bantamweight division when he chooses to show up and fight. He's got incredible measurables. He's going on 31 years old. He's 5'10". He's got a crazy 75-inch reach. And we hear every Montel Jackson fight week about how he has bigger hands than Francis Ngannou. Montel is 12-2 as a professional, with 7 of his 12 wins coming inside the distance. He's got 6 knockouts and 1 submission. Montel is 5-2 in decisions in his pro career. He's got eye-popping numbers in all facets of the game. He's got measurables that stick out. His striking and grappling numbers also pop too. We already went over the measurables, but on the feet at distance striking range, where he spends about 40% of the 93 minutes that he's been in the UFC cage, Montel's got a positive 1.57 distance striking differential. He's got 47% accuracy, which is solid. He's got 67% defense, which is excellent. And he's got a total of 9 knockdowns in 8 UFC fights. All 9 of those knockdowns came in his last 5 fights, where interestingly enough, he only has 1 win by KO. Montel has never absorbed a knockdown in his UFC career, so at range where he has that 8-inch reach advantage, he's not only winning moments with that pile of knockdowns that he's racked up, but he's also winning the minutes. Montel should spend a lot more time working at distance striking range, especially in this matchup. In the wrestling grappling exchanges, Montel is averaging 3.52 takedowns per 15 minutes. He's gotten 22 of the 32 takedowns that he's attempted, which is 69%, while allowing 3.04 takedowns per 15 minutes and and he's had 1.12 submissions attempted against him per 15 minutes. Montel is very efficient because of his length and grip strength. His opponents have attempted 58 takedowns, while Montel has only tried 32 takedowns. But Montel is still winning almost 69% of the control time positions he's been in because of his clinch control, because of his grip strength, because of his efficient takedown game. This has been a big key to his success because Montel spends a lot of time in those control time positions. He's faced an average level of competition thus far overall in the UFC. His only losses came to Brett Johns and Ricky Simon. And in those 2 fights, he was taken down 15 times on 39 attempts and controlled for almost 15 minutes combined in 30 minutes of cage time. So the secret to beating Jackson thus far has been relentless takedown attempts and lots of control time. Jackson's UFC wins thus far over Brian Kelleher, Andre Sukumta, Felipe Colares, Jesse Strader, and JP Bays, and then Julio Arce. Those guys have a combined UFC record of 17 wins and 25 losses, with only 2 of those opponents, Kelleher and Arce, having winning UFC records. So, he's got 2 losses, which are against good guys. He's got 2 fairly impressive wins over guys like Kelleher and Arce, but then the other wins, it's Andre Sukumta, Felipe Colares, Jesse Strader, JP Bays. Montel Jackson is going to be 31 very soon, in about a week. So, I'd like to see him fighting a little more often. I'd like to see him fighting some higher level competition here because he's got all the tools. He can take those next steps, start getting tougher fights and winning those fights and getting himself into the top 15. But it's going to take time. It's going to take him being a lot more active, and it's going to be him taking tougher fights than a 38-year-old Yahya, who's basically just a grappling specialist. So, in summary, Hani's got the overall and the UFC experience advantages. He's got 26 more professional fights. He's got 200 more minutes of cage time and almost 15 more years as a pro fighter. He also has 8 more UFC fights and almost 90 more minutes in the UFC cage. Hani actually has solid overall distance striking metrics, but will be way out of his depth at range in this matchup. But as always, Hani has a tricky and opportunistic submission game, good top control. So if he can get this fight to the ground by any means necessary, he could wind up making this fight a lot closer than what the bookies have it at right now. Now, Montel Jackson is 7.5 years younger than Hani. He's got 4 inches of height on him. He's got an 8-inch reach advantage over him. He will be the much better minute and moment winner at distance striking range, and he should also be much more likely to win minutes in the clinch due to that grip strength and that size advantage that he has over everybody there. His grappling efficiency should serve him well in this matchup should Rani try to get this fight to the ground. And Montel has fought and beaten the better brand of UFC competition overall. I have to go with Montel here, obviously, but Montel's way too comfortable grappling. And I'd like to see him fight smarter and keep fights at distance striking range longer, where he's got that length, that speed, and the power advantages. I'm picking Montel to win this fight by decision, but I absolutely think he could finish this fight if he's smart, if he keeps this at distance, where it's only a matter of time that he lands a big shot that crumbles the 38-year-old Yahya. So, yeah, I am picking him to win this one by decision. So let's get this here. We're going to go Montel Quick Jackson winning this fight by decision. We got one more fight to break down before we get to the main card here. Yeah, and what something that I wanted to show you guys on my prop template here was I see a lot of people betting the under in this fight, and I get it. Montel Jackson is way more powerful. He's a lot younger. He should just land a big shot and crumble Yahya. But he's kind of comfortable grappling, and if he lets Rani, grapple with him, this fight's probably going to go over. It's minus 180 for the fight doesn't go to decision, which is a 64% implied probability, but only 49% of bantamweight fights finish inside the distance. So that's a difference of 15.4% there. Yahya's fights have finished inside the distance 7 of 16 times, and for Montel Jackson, it's only 2 of 8. Montel's not finishing dudes for some reason at this level. He's dropping everybody, but he doesn't show finishing urgency. He's fine with dropping somebody and then rushing into the clinch and staying there for 2 minutes and not doing much. So it's really weird to see a 64% implied probability on the fight doesn't go to decision. But when you add up these guys' 24 combined UFC fights that have been scheduled for 3 rounds, only 37% of them are finishing inside the distance, which is showing us that there's a lot of value on these overs at plus 130, and the fight doesn't go, or the fight goes to decision at plus 150 here. Get an 11 and a 14% break when you compare those implied probabilities to the benchmark for the division. And you see 62% of their fights have went to decision. 70% of their fights have went over 2.5 rounds. So could be an interesting contrarian play to go with the over 2.5 or the fight goes to decision here. And I would just caution anybody who's thinking about laying juice on this. I know stylistically that Montel should go out there and starch this dude if he fights smart, and that's a big if, and if he keeps his fight at distance striking range, which is another big if, because as we can see here, only 30% of Yahya's fights take place at distance striking range, and only 40% for Montel Jackson. So there are some things in the numbers here that lead me to believe that this fight, might not spend enough time at distance striking range for Montel Jackson to look minus 650 here. But all that being said, I'm not sacking up and picking Yahya at the age of 38, especially not against this guy Jackson. But I do think that the overs could be a cheeky way to analytically play this fight and hope that Yahya, who has never been finished at the UFC level in 16 UFC fights, he's never been finished, but he's faced a pretty shitty level of competition overall. As we can see, he faces guys overall with a losing record, 42 wins, 55 losses. So anyway, yeah, Montel Jackson to win by decision is my pick. The next fight is going to be Ricky Glenn going up against Christos the Spartan Giagos. Let me get that line up here. So Giagos, the Grecian, plus 142. Ricky Glenn, the favorite, minus 162. And we got the fight doesn't go to decision sitting at plus 110 here. Let me see something. Parker asking, is the 9,700 price tag worth it for Jackson? Hani not being TKO'd since 2009 scares me. But yeah, Jackson might not. Yeah, I think it could be worth it for him. There's not a lot of high-priced guys I like on DraftKings this week. I think there's a lot of value like in fighters like Cachoeira, fighters like Gomis, fighters like Brady Hiestand, who are going to be underdogs, but I think that they have a path. All of them have paths to victory. And then you got to figure out who you would want to pay up for then if you were to get those three guys in your lineup. And I think Jackson is probably one of the guys I would pay up for. Half unit Yahya by sub wouldn't be the worst bet I've made. Yeah, you can just count on maybe Montel Jackson making a mistake and what's his name taking advantage of it. And Yidis is going, oi, like and subscribe for free ass shavings. Let's get it, Yidis. Carrillo is saying, what 6 fighters on this card would you parlay with Gervonta? He's asking Nigel Lee. And Nigel's saying, as of now, Lucindo, Green, and Wells. And Carrillo saying, Wells. Yeah, I don't think Wells is parlayable. I have no idea who wins that fight. And let's talk about it. Well, first let's talk about Glenn versus Giagos here. So, oh damn, we ring a ding ding, you guys. My guy Yeetus with the donation here, saying Uncle Weezy the best. Just showing love, bro. Thanks for the content. Keep it up. I appreciate you, Yeetus. Thank you so much for the donation to the show, keeping the lights on here in the studio. I've even left my Cash App in the description of this video here. If anybody wants to make a donation there, I would appreciate it. Tips are never expected, but always welcomed and appreciated, you guys. So I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Do me a favor real quick, like here, 49 of you guys in here, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe if you haven't already, and join the Patreon if you haven't already, and ring a ding ding. Check it out, you guys. My guy, the Carrillo, up in here, $20 donation, stepping up to the plate, making a donation, keeping the lights on here in the studio. Tips not expected, but certainly appreciated. And Yeetus and the Carrillo, I appreciate you both for making this a great show for your Uncle Weezy. Got a little bit of money coming into that YouTube account, which is always a little too thin. So much love to you guys. Thank you so much. All right, so let's talk about Glenn versus Giagos here. Let's first start talking about Ricky Glenn. He's a 34-year-old southpaw. He's got good size for the lightweight division at 6 feet with a 70-inch reach. He's got 30 professional fights in his 16-plus year career, and he's got a 22-win, 6-loss, and 2-draw career with 17 of those 22 wins coming inside the distance. He's got 4 submissions, and he's got 13 knockouts. Glenn is 4-3-1 in the UFC with 105 minutes in the UFC cage. Only one of his UFC fights is finished inside the distance. He's done a decent job of winning moments, but not really minutes at the distance striking range, has Ricky Glenn. He's landed a knockdown on 1.3% of the distance strikes that he's landed, which is very solid. And he's got 3 UFC knockdowns while only absorbing 1. He's got a negative 0.92 distance striking differential, and he's got not good accuracy at 33.6%. But he's got 58% defense, so he's not a great minute winner thanks to that subpar accuracy. But the power still seems to be there, as we saw in the Joaquim Silva fight, where he scored 2 knockdowns and a first-round knockout. Rick has decent grappling efficiency. He's only got 4 takedowns in 8 UFC fights, and he's getting his takedowns at a terrible 14% accuracy. But Ricky still manages to win almost 43% of the control time positions that he's in. So when he does manage to get top control, he does very well with it, as we saw in the 3rd round of the Grant Dawson fight. Glenn has got 68% takedown defense, and he's been controlled for over 25% of the 105 minutes that he's been in the UFC cage. Ricky's fought a solid level of competition in the UFC overall, and his 4 wins are over solid dudes with winning records, and that's Joaquim Silva, Dennis the Menace Bermudez, Gavin Tucker, which was an unbelievable performance, dude. If you are thinking about betting against Ricky Glenn and you want to be talked out of making that bet, go watch Ricky Glenn versus Gavin Tucker. He put an absolute ass shaving on Tucker there, who at that point was one of the hottest prospects in the featherweight class. Absolutely stole the hype from him there. And then he also beat Felipe Nover, who did not have a good UFC record. Now, on the other side, we got Christos the Spartan Giagos. He's a 33-year-old veteran fighter out of Black House in Southern California. He's got a 19-10 pro record, 11 of those 19 wins coming inside the distance, and he's got 4 submissions and 7 knockouts. He's got a 5-6 UFC record, over 100 minutes in the UFC cage. He's solid everywhere. He's got a positive 0.45 distance striking differential and a positive 2.33 distance strike attempt differential. He's got 37% accuracy and he's got 58% defense. He's been an active wrestler, getting 3.21 takedowns per 15 minutes, and he's won 62% of the control time positions that he's been in. He's fought a good level of competition overall at the UFC level, but his 5 wins come against guys with average records of 1 win and 3.8 losses. And his losses, now they're coming against guys with an average record of 10 UFC wins and 4 losses. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he fares against a fighter who's actually right in the middle of that. Because when we look at the individual performances here, right, you see Christos Giagos, he beats Sean Soriano, who's bad. Carlton Minus, who's bad. Damir Hadzovic, who's okay, but not great. Mizuto Hirota, who is really bad. And then Jorge de Oliveira, I don't even know who that is. So those are his 5 wins. But then you see the losses, and it's Gilbert Burns. It's Chris Wade. It's former champion Charles Du Bronx Oliveira, Drakkar Klose, Arman Sarukian, and Thiago Moises. So this guy Giagos is like the guys that are beating him. Here, check it out. I've got it over here on the strength of schedule stat of the advanced stats here. 7-4, 6-2, 7-2, 21-9, 5-2, and 14-5. So the 6 guys that have beaten him have got 60 UFC wins and only 24 losses. And then the bums that he's beating, Sean Soriano, 0-5. This guy was 0-2, 4-5 for Hadzovic, 1-5 for, I don't even know who that was, and then 0-2 was Jorge Oliveira. So this is going to be a guy in Rick Glenn who's got a 5-5 record or something like that. That's going to be right in the middle of the talent group that Giagos has been fighting here. So it's going to be interesting. I kind of feel like I have no good information on this fight, because knowing that, like, for instance, Moises or Sarukian is going to shave his ass does me no good going up against a guy like Ricky Glenn. And knowing that he beats Sean Soriano and Carlton Minus and Mizuto Hirota and Jorge de Oliveira, I mean, like, those guys are all guys that Ricky Glenn body bags as well. So I'm interested to see how this one works out. So in my opinion, let's bring the stats back up here. This should be a pretty close fight, as both guys are similar in size, age, length, and experience overall, and at the UFC level. Giagos' stats show him to be the better minute winner at range and in the grappling exchanges, but the big differences are in the power Glenn has on the feet, and with Rick's wins at the UFC level being way more impressive than Giagos' wins. So I'm going to have to pick Rick Glenn. I'm going to pick him to win this fight by decision, which is how he has won all but one of his UFC fights. Is all by decision, and all of his losses are by decision. His draw, obviously a decision. So since most Glenn fights do go to decision, I'm going to pick him to win by decision. But I also think that we could find out that Christos Giagos is a real legit fighter in this lightweight division when he is on a full camp, when he's not stepping up to take fights against absolute killers on short notice. So we're going to find out a lot about both of these guys here, but in particular, I think we're going to find out what level Christos Giagos is at, because he's shown some real flashes in the cage. So don't have a lot of confidence in this spot, but I am going with Ricky Glenn to win this fight by decision. All right, we've got 5 fights left to go here. The next fight is going to be Jeremiah Wells versus Matt Semelsberger. But let's do something real quick here, you guys. I haven't done a story time with Uncle Weezy in a long time, so let's do that here. I was hanging out with a couple weeks ago. I told you guys that my girlfriend's mother passed away, and we were in Michigan hanging out. And I live in Illinois and Chicago, where we have legal marijuana now, and we also are in Michigan a lot, where there's legal marijuana. So a couple of the kids of my girlfriend's stepdad's friend, we were talking about weed, and they're young. They're in their early 20s, and they're talking about going to the dispensary and getting what they want and stuff like that. And they were kind of like bitching about, they don't have this kind or they don't have that kind. And I was like, can you stop bitching? You have no idea how good you have it. You don't know what it's like for marijuana to be illegal, and to have to like go to shady people to buy it, because so I started telling them, I'm like, look, you guys, just so I don't have to listen to you bitch anymore, I'm going to tell you a story. And I'm going to tell you about what it was like trying to buy weed back in the late 90s, back when I was in college. This would actually been the early to mid 90s when I was in college. I didn't even smoke weed in high school. So when I went off to college, started experimenting with a couple of things, I found that I liked it. I enjoyed it. So when I would go back home to Park Ridge, where I grew up, Park Ridge, Illinois, right outside of Chicago, Maine South High School, stand up. That's where I went. It was a lame suburb. There was never anything going on there. And when I would go back home, I would hang out with my buddy Mike that I was still friends with from high school. I'm still friends with him to this day. And, we would go and play cards someplace, and we would always try to pick up some weed and, smoke with our friends and, play some poker or go drive around or whatever. But it was weird because when we were that age, marijuana was illegal. Nobody had all this indoor dro shit. It was like outdoor, like Indiana no high, the brown frown, just shitty weed with like lots of stems and seeds, bricked up, flattened crap, right? And you had to go to drug dealers to get it. Most of the drug dealers weren't just like weed dealers. Like a lot of these guys were selling coke or other shit, and like they were kind of like dangerous people. You didn't necessarily want to be around them. So I could get weed when we were up in college, when it was, you could hang out with people that weren't doing all the other stuff and just get weed when you wanted it. But when I would go back to Park Ridge, we always would have to wind up going to some shady ass place to get weed. So one of the times I'm hanging out with my buddy Mike, and he works at a pizza place that's like 2 blocks away from where my house was. So I would always go and hang out with him there while he was waiting for deliveries in the back. And we were talking about where we were going to get our weed that night. And people were like, the usual person wasn't available. They were on vacation. And so I'm talking with these other guys that are delivery guys there, and with my friend Mike. And I'm like, well, where do we go? And they're all like, they're banding about names. And one of them was like, dude, I know Polish Andy's home, And I'm like, who's Polish Andy? Well, he's a drug dealer. We can go get some weed there, And like, I remember one of the guys like, oh man, I don't want to go to Polish Andy's place. Do we have to? And they're like, well, do you want weed? It's like, all right, we'll go to Polish Andy's place. So we get in the car and we're going to go over to Polish Andy's place now. So now they're kind of like telling me about this guy and what to do and what not to do in there. And I've never met him before, so I'm always a little bit apprehensive meeting these kind of people. It's how it goes. But while we're almost there, my buddy Mike turns to me and he says to me, hey, listen, if Polish Andy asks you if you like AC/DC, just say yes. And he felt the need to tell me this because, like, I don't know if you guys have ever seen The Big Lebowski, but there's that scene where the dude is in the back of a cab and the cab driver's playing the Eagles. And he's like, man, I'm having a bad day. Not the Eagles. Can you please change the radio station? Anything but the Eagles. And he gets kicked out of the cab because the cab driver loves the Eagles. Well, I don't like AC/DC. I've never liked AC/DC. Whenever like AC/DC would come on at a party, I'd be like the dude in the back of the cab being like, come on, can we please change this? They've been making the same album for 30 fucking years. I don't like their music. And I'm like, come on, dude, you got to be kidding me. Why would you tell me that I need to say that I like AC/DC if he asks me if I like AC/DC? I hate AC/DC. And he's like, listen, I promise you, just go with it. We're going to be in there for like 10 minutes. We're going to get our weed and we're going to leave. But and it probably won't come up, but just don't talk shit about AC/DC. And if he asks you if you like them, just say you like them. And I'm like, this is fucking weird, but okay. All right. So we go in there, and of course, Polish Andy is not just a weed dealer. And so we're in there, and what we notice is that there's a giant TV being set up. As we're coming in, Andy and a couple of his friends who appear to be very hyped up and maybe on amphetamines are setting up this surround sound system in this giant big screen TV. Now, this is like 1993, 1994. So it was the kind of TV where you actually had it on the floor, and it was like 4 feet tall and like 4 feet wide. And it was gigantic, right? And they're setting up this TV, and they're like, hey, have a seat. This will only take like another 15 minutes, and then we can take care of you guys. But, you're in for a treat, they tell us. And I'm like, what the fuck? We got to sit here for 15 minutes, And so they're setting it up, and they're having all kinds of problems because they're coked up. They're obviously coked up, and it's just weird already, right? And so they eventually set it up. It takes about 20 minutes, and we're just sitting there, and I'm looking over at my buddy like, this is a bad idea. And so they finally get it. They turn on the TV. It's working. The sound system's working. And they're all coked up. It worked. They're happy. And of course, I shit you fucking not, Polish Andy looks right at me, the only guy that he doesn't know in the room. And he looks right at me and he goes, you like AC/DC, right? And I don't look right at him right away. I look over at my buddy Mike, and he's like, like Mike's giving me like, yeah, I mean, of course I'm like, of course I like AC/DC. And so like on top, there's the DVD player on top. He pulls off this thing. He's got AC/DC live somewhere in Europe. And now they've got the TV set up and the surround sound set up, and they want to fucking rock it. And I'm like, I'm in a room with 4 coked up Polish dudes, and now they're about to rock out to AC/DC. And I'm like, dude, and I was like, how the hell do we get out of here, right? Because I don't want to listen to this. And so they put it on, and now they're so fired up. And they're singing along with the songs, and and I'm like, hey, can we get some weed? We've got like places to go. And they're like, places to go? Where are you gonna go that's cooler than this? We got an AC/DC DVD. They're rocking out to like TNT and Thunderstruck and all these songs that I hate. And they're all coked up and going, oi, oi, and they're like in my face, and I'm having to act like I like it. And I'm looking over at Mike, and he's just dying, looking over at me, but I'm like, how the hell is Weezy keeping it together right now? And I'm having problems keeping a straight face, because first of all, it's just comical looking at these guys. They're all like 70. And this was like 30 years ago that these guys were like 70. Okay. And Angus Young is still in that fucking schoolboy uniform that he's been wearing for 30 years. The singer is in that weird ass leather hat, and he's walking around the stage, and he can't even come close to hitting the notes anymore because he's older than dirt. So he's got his chin, and it allows him to be able to hit the notes, but you see him walking around, and I'm like, I keep going over to my buddy Mike. I'm like, why does he have his chin down in his chest? And he's like, I think that's the only way you can hit the notes. I'm like, oh my God, these guys suck, And we had to be there. So we were there for about 20 minutes while they were setting up this TV. And then once it was set up properly and loud, they played my least favorite band, while being coked up, getting in my face, singing the words to me, expecting me to sing it back to them. I've got to put on a pretty face the whole time, pretending like I like it, so that me and my 3 friends can split $40 worth of weed that we're going to smoke in its entirety that night. And then I'm going to probably have to go back to Polish Andy's place the next day to listen to more AC/DC so that I can get another $40 bag of shitty brick weed. And these punk kids are telling me that they're pissed off that they can only get 2 grams of Durban poison instead of 3.5. I'm like, you guys have no fucking clue how ridiculously hard it was to buy weed and the shit that you had to go through to buy weed when I was your age. So always remember to count your blessings, folks. We're coming into different times now. We've got more options available to us, and you know, things are getting easier for us weed smokers. But all of us that are my age, we need to remember what it used to be like. It never used to be this easy. We never used to have this many choices. The weed was garbage. The dealers were pricks, and they all listened to shitty music. So, oh my God, you guys. So I just wanted to remind everybody, the next time you're like online placing your order at your dispensary and you're bitching to yourself, just remember that story. Remember how much more difficult it used to be, man. Yeah. And Jay Rich is saying, nobody has time for bad weed, Uncle. He is saying, sounds like Mike got a kick of it. Yeah, he did. He was truly enjoying it, you know. And I'll tell you something else. I hate AC/DC. Mike hates Bob Seger, right? So we would always fuck with each other, you know, and like turn up Bob Seger when it came on the radio in my car, you know, just to piss off, turn this shit off. And it was the same thing with AC/DC. We would fuck with each other like that. But yeah, man, I appreciate you guys. Always love sharing story time with you guys. And we got the Weasel in here. It's Weezy story time. He's laughing like, I love you guys. I love it. I love you guys hanging out with me here. 54 of you. Hit that thumbs up, man. Hit that subscribe. Definitely join the Patreon if you can. But yeah, let's move on. Let's keep talking about fights here instead of talking about how hard it used to be to buy weed. So we are on the Semelsberger Jeremiah Wells fight, which is a pick'em right now. And let me share my screen with you guys again. All right, and we will get those stats up here for you guys, and there they are. And I'll go back to my notes. Let's break down Jeremiah Wells versus Matthew Semelsberger, which is going to be an absolute barn-burner, everybody. Jeremiah Wells, 36-year-old fighter training with the Renzo Gracie Philly guys. He's got an 11-win, 2-loss, and 1-draw record over 10-plus years as a pro. So he hasn't been very active. Only 14 fights in 10 years. But he's 3-0 in the UFC, and all 3 of those wins are coming inside the distance. He's got 2 knockouts and 1 submission. He's got a sub in the first round. He's got a knockout in the first round, and he's got a knockout in the second round. He's a ball of muscle. He's got a ton of power, and he's got a very dangerous top game with good submissions. Excuse me, you guys. Jeremiah does everything with fight-ending intentions. He always throws with power and purpose. He's looking to punt his opponent's head into the cheap seats. He's finished 9 of his 11 pro wins. He's got 5 knockouts, and he's got 4 submissions, so he's definitely dangerous wherever the fight goes. He's got 2 knockdowns landed at the UFC level, and he's landing a knockdown on almost 12% of the distance strikes that he's landing. That's this number right here. So out of the he lands a knockdown on 11.6 or 11.76% of the distance strikes that he lands. So like 1 out of 9 strikes that he lands in distance winds up sending you to the land of wind and ghosts. So this guy has got terrifying power. That's a big number. And he's also landing 1.21 distance strikes more per minute than his opponents land. But it's in a very, very small sample size. As we can see here, only 3.3 minutes spent at distance striking range. But that's another way to look at those 2 knockdowns. He's got 3.3 minutes at distance, and in those 3.3 minutes, he's landed 2 knockdowns. So the guy is very, very dangerous. So Jeremiah's also dominated the control time positions thus far in the UFC. He's only got one takedown, but he has 68% control time for, while only yielding 3.5% control time against. So he's winning 95% of the control time positions that he's been in, and his fights are there over 70% of the time. Jeremiah has fought solid competition thus far at the UFC level, and the wins over Alves and McGee in particular are very good wins. The only area of concern with Wells is the gas tank. He does everything with 100% effort, so it's not sustainable to fight like that for 15 minutes. So if you can weather the early storm against him, there's a chance that he gasses out and you could take over the fight in later rounds. Now, for Matt Semelsberger, he's a 30-year-old fighter. He's huge for the division at 6'1" with a 75-inch reach. He switches stances on the feet. He's got dangerous power, and he's explosive and athletic. Matt is solid at distance range. He's got a negative 9.9 distance striking differential, and his opponents throw a little more than he does, but makes up for it with his power. Matt has 7 UFC knockdowns in 7 fights while absorbing 0 knockdowns. So he can lose minutes and win moments, and those moments can actually win him rounds. Matt has actually won minutes with his grappling and wrestling as well. He has a good blast double, and even though he's attempted less takedowns than his opponents, he still wins 60% of the control time positions he's been in, and he gets his takedowns at a 77% clip. Matt's faced and beaten solid competition thus far in the UFC, and he's still young in the game. He's only got 6 years as a professional fighter. So even at 30 years of age, we could probably still expect to see Matt continue to improve, which he's already been doing at the UFC level. So in summary, Jeremiah Wells is the more diverse finisher. He's never been finished in his pro career. He has crazy power on the feet, but so does Matt. Jeremiah is the superior submission grappler here. Matt is 6 years younger. He's 4 inches taller, and he has a 1-inch reach advantage. He has a small overall experience advantage, and he's got 4 more UFC fights and over 60 more minutes in the UFC cage. Matt has the better accuracy and defense at distance striking range. This is a great fight. Both guys are extremely dangerous, and the way Wells brings the fight to his opponents, I can see this fight ending early because both of these guys have crazy power on the feet. I could see Wells having early success and potentially getting an early finish. But as the fight goes on, I'm going to favor the youth and the speed and the athleticism of Semelsberger here. I have no clue who's going to win this fight, but I do think that the under 1.5 rounds is a solid bet at plus money. I have a 1-unit bet on the under 1.5 at plus 145. I will show you my prop template real quick as to why I made that bet. So we're looking at plus 145, about a 41% implied probability is a plus 145 line. 33% of fights at the welterweight division go under 1.5 rounds. So we're overpaying there by about 7.4%. But with Wells and Semelsberger, all 3 of Wells' fights at the UFC level have ended under 1.5 rounds. He comes out like a house of fire. And then Semelsberger, it's been 2 of 7, but 2 of his 7 fights have also finished inside the distance as well. So when Semelsberger's fights end, they end early as well. So 5 of their 10 combined UFC fights have finished inside the distance. We're only paying 40% on the line. So that's a 9.18% break there. And these guys are going under 1.5 rounds at a 16.5% rate better than what the division does, which is 33%. So I think it's a good line. I like the fact that it's plus money. And I think both of these guys are so explosive that one of them is going to get it done under 1.5 rounds. I'm going to pick Jeremiah Wells to win this fight by first round knockout. But I'm making that pick with very little confidence because I think the line is exactly where it should be. I think Semelsberger is more athletic. I think he's the better conditioned athlete at this point. But I think Jeremiah Wells has more ways to win. I think he can get takedowns and fish for submissions. I think he's got a ton of power on the feet. And I think that because he's got more ways to win, I think it's just with this line being a pick'em, it makes a little more sense to go with Jeremiah Wells because he's a lot more dangerous of a grappler, and he's equally as dangerous on the feet here. So I'm picking Wells. I'll pick him to get an early knockout, and I love the under 1.5 plus money in this spot. All right. The next fight is going to be Iasmin Lucindo squaring off against Brogan Walker. Brogan Walker plus 280, Iasmin Lucindo minus 340 on Bet Online. The fight doesn't go to decision, plus money at plus 200 here. So let's get those stats up on the screen. And let's talk first about Iasmin Lucindo. She's a very experienced fighter for someone who's only 21 years old. She's 5'3". She has a 66-inch reach, and she's got a 13-5 pro record with over 175 minutes in the pro cage. So she took her first pro fight at the age of 15. She's finished 10 of her 13 pro wins inside the distance. She's got 8 knockouts, and she's got 2 submissions. She's a wild woman on the feet. She's got zero technique. She just plants her feet and throws wild overhands and hooks with reckless abandon. Her UFC debut came on short notice against Yasmin Jauregui. She had a competitive fight with her. She stood in the pocket, threw bombs, and made it a war. But the superior technical kickboxer won every round, outlanding her at distance, winning the striking battle. Yasmin's regional scene footage shows a calm, confident fighter that does great work getting takedowns, winning lots of minutes with her top control ground and pound and back takes. She's faced decent names on the regional scene, including Gabriela Fernandez, Sarah Frota, Lucrecia Ria. And she has beaten both Frota and Ria. So she came into the UFC with a pretty impressive resume at the tender young age of 20 years old. She's going to be facing an older fighter who's faced much better competition, but we know that Yasmin can handle the big stage and perform well there, even though she's still very young in the game and still improving and rounding out her MMA skill set. Now, Brogan Walker, Brogy Bear is a 34-year-old fighter. She's out of Guam. She's 5'4". She's got a 67-inch reach, and she's 7-3 as a professional with only 1 of her 7 wins coming inside the distance, and that was a submission. She hasn't been active as a pro. She's only fought 10 times in an 8.5-year career, but she does have almost 140 minutes in the pro cage. Brogan is a well-rounded fighter. She's not great anywhere, but there aren't many holes in her game. On the feet, she throws a lot of volume, almost 15 distance strike attempts per minute, and she landed against Miller at a 62% rate at distance. The problem for Brogy in that fight was giving up 4 out of 4 takedown attempts and getting control for 69% of the fight. And that is exactly how Yasmin wins fights when she's at her best, with wrestling, top control, back takes, and ground and pound, which we saw Brogan really struggle with against the very inexperienced Juliana Miller. Brogan has fought great fighters in her career. She's got wins over Sherry Maraski, Kate De Silva, Miranda Maverick, and her regional scene losses come against Erin Blanchfield and Pearl Gonzalez. I was pretty high on Brogan coming into that Miller fight, but she got absolutely mauled by someone who has trash striking and only 3 professional fights. So I think that this is probably it for Brogan. I mean, I'm not sure how she comes back from that performance against a fighter like Yasmin, who's a better, more experienced, and younger version of Juliana Miller. Not only was Brogan's performance trash in that fight, but that ass shaving is absolutely aging like milk after we saw Veronica Hardy, who is 1-4 in the UFC and coming off a 3-year layoff, absolutely destroy Juliana Miller in her next fight. So, in summary, Yasmin is 13 years younger than Brogy. She's got 8 more pro fights than Brogan Walker. How about that? Brogan's 34 years old. She's 13 years older, but she's only got 10 fights while Yasmin has 18. So it's busyness too, because Yasmin Lucindo is fighting 3 times a year and Brogan Walker's fighting about once a year. So Yasmin's the more opportunistic finisher, the more powerful striker, and she has the better takedowns and top control and conditioning. Brogan is 1 inch taller. She's got a 1 inch reach advantage. She's fought the better level of competition overall, but that's about it. I like Yasmin to win by decision here. I don't see how Brogan wins the minutes of this fight unless she can stop the takedowns and keep this fight at distance striking range. But even on the feet, I think Yasmin will be busier and more dangerous. Looking forward to seeing Yasmin take the next step in her already impressive career at the age of 21. So, yeah, we're going to go with Yasmin, and we're going to take her to win this fight by decision. Yasmin Lucindo by decision. All right. The next fight is going to be... where did that go? Okay. All right. It's going to be Bobby King Green going up against Jared Gordon. Let's see here. Jared Gordon is plus 215. Bobby Green minus 255. The fight doesn't go to decision. Plus money at plus 195 here. So we can see that Jared Gordon is a couple years younger than Bobby Green, but it's going to be Bobby who's got a 3-inch reach advantage and a 1-inch height advantage. We got Jared out of Rufus Sport, Pinnacle MMA for Bobby Green. Bobby's really experienced. 44 professional fights, almost 20 more fights than Jared Gordon, almost 150 more minutes in the pro cage. He's also got 8 more fights at the UFC level and about 100 more minutes in the UFC cage. Green, a 30% finish rate in 10 UFC wins. Jared Gordon, a 14% finish rate in 7 UFC wins. Green has been pretty durable. He's been knocked out in 3 of his 9 UFC losses. But the other 6 losses are by decision. While Gordon has not been durable, he's been finished in 4 of his 5 UFC losses, 3 times by knockout and 1 time by submission. So while this fight is at distance striking range, it's going to be all Bobby Green. But when you look at the numbers, Jared Gordon has really good distance striking numbers. He stays busy. He's offering almost 14 significant strike attempts per minute. He lands at a 52% clip, and he's landing 7.24 distance strikes per minute spent at distance here. But he absorbs 5.4. So it's like a positive 1.75 distance striking differential. It's very good. And he's got 63% distance striking defense. Good numbers for Green, too, though. 6.59 landed, 4.4 absorbed. He throws a little more volume than his opponents, 48% accurate, and 64% distance striking defense. But I think it's the eye test. You know, we see the eye test and we see that Bobby Green is going to be the better boxer here. Where Jared is doing his best work is in these control time positions. Now, Jared only spends 47% of his fights at distance striking range because he wants to grapple, because that's where he does his best work, and he does a good job of getting fights into those grappling positions. But Bobby Green's done a really good job of keeping fights at distance striking range over a 250-minute almost sample size. His fights are spending 75% of the time at distance striking range, where he's usually faster and throwing more volume and the better minute winner. But Bobby's also a good wrestler. He's got 20 takedowns. He's allowed 20 takedowns, but he outcontrols his opponents 15% to 10%, winning almost 60% of the control time positions that his fights are in, outcontrolling his opponents at a 1.46 to 1 ratio. But Jared has got 20 takedowns and he's allowed 15, but he's outcontrolling his opponents at almost a 3 to 1 ratio. Almost 40% control time for and 13.4% control time allowed. And he's winning 75% of the control time positions that he's in. So this is going to be, in my opinion, this fight is going to come down to whether Jared Gordon can make this a fight where 50% of the fight takes place in control time positions, because that's going to be a fight where Jared Gordon looks more like minus 110 rather than plus 215. But Bobby Green doesn't spend a lot of time getting controlled. And if we take a little bit deeper dive here, we see Bobby Green here, and we see this long list of opponents. Some good grapplers: Islam Makhachev, Thiago Moises, Clay Guida, Trinaldo, Closa, Magomerov, Josh Thompson, Pat Healy, Volkman, right? And when you go over and you look at the control time numbers that he's allowed, this column here is how many seconds of control time he's allowed. Now, You see several fights where there's under 100 seconds of control time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 of his fights. And you see there's a few fights 117, 111, 100, 116, 185. So he's had 5 fights where his opponents are controlling him for 3 or less minutes, usually around 2. And then there's only a couple fights. It's this one here where he was controlled for 272 seconds. This one here where he was controlled for 185. And this one here where he was controlled for 337. All these other fights that aren't those 3 are fights where he's being controlled for less than 15% of the fight. So not enough to probably sway the judges unless he's fighting somebody, that's really on his level or even better in striking. And you look at these fights, it's the Clay Guida fight. He won that fight. Pat Healy had a lot of control time on him, but he won that fight. Jacob Volkman got a lot of control time. He won that fight. Even when people control Bobby Green, he still gets the win. But laying minus 280 on a minute winner when you know that there's a very good chance that the fight is going to go to decision is just terrifying these days with these judges. So I would recommend that even though I'm picking Bobby Green to win this fight by decision. Bobby Green, a 1.63 ratio overall, Gordon 1.75, but Green facing a much more experienced competition with 14 total fights compared to 8.25 here. And you see Jared Gordon is beating guys with losing records, 0.89 win-loss ratio, 17 and 19 are the total records in the UFC of the 7 guys that Jared Gordon has beaten, while guys like Bobby Green are winning over guys that have a 6.5 and 5.8 record, guys with winning records, 65 wins, 58 losses. So I think Bobby Green's got the better level of competition. He's got the better wins. He's got the better boxing. He's faster. He's more experienced. And Jared Gordon is going to be, pretty good on the feet, but he's going to need to get a couple of takedowns and win a bunch of minutes of control time here in order to have a chance to win a decision. So, and we just haven't seen Bobby Green give up a lot of control time. And even in the fights where he is giving up a lot of control time, he's winning the majority of those fights. And because, Jared Gordon isn't exactly Islam Makhachev, I don't really think we have to worry about Gordon doing to Green what Makhachev did to Green. So, yeah, Bobby Green by decision is going to be the pick for this fight. But I would not lay that juice. And I think Green by decision is somewhere in the neighborhood of like minus 140. So that's too much to lay. I'd rather bet Jared Gordon by decision in something like plus 500 and then hope he gets a makeup for the robbery last time out against Paddy Pimblett. But that brings us to the next fight, which is going to be Bruno Blindado Silva at plus 130, going up against Brad Tavares at minus 150. Fight doesn't go to decision, sitting up at minus 160 here. All right, and there we go. So we can see that Bruno Silva's a couple of years younger here. These guys are about the same height, same reach. They're both orthodox fighters. Extreme Couture for Tavares, Evolution Thai for Bruno Silva. Both of these guys are very experienced. Silva 30 fights, Tavares 26, but Tavares has about 90 more minutes, about 80 more minutes in the pro cage in comparison to Silva, because Brad Tavares' average fight time around 11.2 minutes, about 7 minutes for Bruno Silva. Tavares has got a lot more UFC experience with 11 more fights and about 160 more minutes in the UFC cage. Silva, the much better finisher, 100% finish rate at the UFC level in 3 wins, while Tavares has a 10% finish rate in 10 wins at the UFC level. So Silva's much more explosive. Silva tends to lose by submission overall, and Brad Tavares tends to lose by knockout. So when we look at the distance striking numbers here, Tavares got good numbers. He throws more than his opponents. He lands more than his opponents. He's got, looks like 3 knockdowns, and he's absorbed 5. So he's definitely been knocked down more than he's knocked his opponents down, but he's got solid 61.5% distance striking defense, good accuracy, And he's going to be facing a guy in Bruno Silva who's showing 48% distance striking defense. So I don't like that for Silva. Tavares is going to be the more active wrestler here. He's attempted 32 takedowns in 6 fights, while it's about 11 takedowns for Bruno Silva here. Both these guys really don't get their takedowns at good clips. And both of them show solid takedown defense, 71% for Silva, about 79% for Tavares. Tavares loses control time positions, as does Bruno Silva, but it's Bruno Silva who's giving up a lot more. He's given up 32% control time while only getting 11%, so he's winning about 26% of the control time positions that he's in. And Tavares gets about 11% control time and allows about 17%, so he's winning about 38% of the control time positions that he's in. But with Tavares, we see a guy who's just faced a much better brand of competition overall, and a guy that's got much better wins at the UFC level. So I don't like Bruno Silva's distance striking defense. I love Brad Tavares' takedown defense. The guy is very hard to take down and hold down. So I see this fight as taking place on the feet, where I think Tavares is going to be better than this guy. I'm not a big fan of Bruno Silva's striking at this range. I know he's powerful. I know he's good on the feet, but you see him go out there and lose minutes to guys like Gerald Mearshart on the feet. I'd much rather have a guy like Tavares, who I know has beaten some names. You know, I know he's been out there and fighting at the highest level of the UFC for a very long time. Brad Tavares doesn't pull stunts. He doesn't go out there and suck ass like we saw Silva do the last time as a giant favorite. We know what we're going to get out of Brad Tavares. He's consistent. He's well-rounded. He's very durable. And he's faced better, more well-rounded fighters than Bruno Silva. So I'm going with Brad Tavares to win this fight by decision, because I'm figuring that Tavares doesn't knock out Bruno Silva if Alex Pereira couldn't. So yeah, but we're going to go with Brad Tavares winning this fight by decision here. And I don't think that's a terrible line right now. Tavares by decision. He's minus 150 on the money line. But Tavares by decision plus 170. So I think that's a pretty good look, seeing as Tavares is only 1 of 10 UFC wins inside the distance. Bruno Silva's never been knocked out in his career. He's only lost by submission inside the distance. And Brad Tavares is not a submission threat. As a matter of fact, he's never even attempted a submission at the UFC level. So I think Brad Tavares, the best way to play that minus 150 line for Tavares is to play the plus 170 Brad Tavares by decision line. And that brings us to the main event. Sergey Pavlovich going up against Curtis Blaydes. You know, this is probably one of the easiest fights to break down on the card. It's probably the fight that you need your Uncle Weezy for the least. You could have watched 10 UFC fights in your life and know that if Curtis Blaydes gets a takedown, the fight's probably over. If he doesn't, Sergey Pavlovich probably nukes him in the first round. This is not the kind of fight you need to watch hundreds of hours of tape, compile entire years and decades worth of UFC statistics of every fight that's happened like I have, in order to be able to properly break down the elements of this fight and what's important here. But let's just go over the numbers while we're at it, right? Blaydes is 1 inch taller, but this guy Pavlovich has got an 84-inch reach, which is the longest reach in the entire UFC. So 4-inch reach advantage. It's southpaw versus orthodox, which also works out great for violence. We got similar experience numbers here, but the difference is that Curtis Blaydes got about 100 more minutes of pro cage time due to the fact that his average fight time about 8.66 minutes, while for Pavlovich it's 4.76 minutes. But Blaydes has more UFC experience. He's got 10 more fights and about 140 more minutes in the UFC cage. Blaydes has been finished by knockout in all 3 of his pro losses. Sergey Pavlovich has been finished by knockout in his only loss. So in these guys' 4 career losses, they're all inside the distance by knockout. and these guys have never submitted anybody in their career. So maybe if we get fight to end by KO, we can get that minus 900. Fight doesn't go down to decision, down to a minus 875. So you can thank your Uncle Weezy for saving you some money right there. While this fight is on the feet, Blaydes is very good on the feet. Very good. He's light on his feet. He moves well for a heavyweight. He's in and out. He lands about 0.5 more distance strikes per minute than he absorbs. He throws about 1.5 more attempts per minute than his opponents do. He's landed 2 knockdowns in 16 fights. But Sergey Pavlovich has got a positive 2.5 distance strike differential. He throws about 4 more distance strike attempts per minute than his opponents. He lands at a terrifying 47.5% accuracy, and he's landing a knockdown on 9.23% of the distance strikes that he lands. So on average, it's going to take Sergey Pavlovich about 11 strikes to land before you get nuked. 80% of his fights at the UFC level have taken place at distance striking range. And yes, Sergey Pavlovich has 6 knockdowns in 10.73 minutes of distance striking at the UFC level. 6 knockdowns in less than 11 minutes. It's unbelievable. This guy is just crazy. It looks like he could punch through a wall. He's extremely powerful. It only takes one from him, and we've seen Curtis Blaydes get knocked out 3 times before. Granted, by Derek Lewis and Francis Ngannou twice, some of the hardest hitters that the division has ever seen. But what Curtis Blaydes does very well is wrestle. 62 takedowns, 115 takedown attempts. He's getting those takedowns at a 54% clip. He averages 6.04 takedowns per 15 minutes. He outcontrols his opponents 52% to 2%, a 26.7 to 1 control time ratio for to control time ratio against. He wins 96.4% of the control time positions that he's in. I think part of the reason Blaydes looks so good when he's striking is because his opponents are so worried about the takedowns. So Curtis has fought the better level of competition overall. 1.7 ratio to 1.34 for Pavlovich. Pavlovich has faced the slightly more experienced guys. The wins, 1.3 ratio for Pavlovich, 1.38 for Blaydes, and they're very similar. So, the wins for Tuivasa, Lewis, Abdurrahimov, Green, and Golm are very good for Sergey Pavlovich. And we got 13 wins for Curtis Blaydes, and he's beaten everybody that he's faced, not named Derek Lewis or Francis Ngannou. And he was styling on Lewis before Lewis landed that one shot. And that just goes to show you, that's exactly how this fight could play out. Is Sergey going to land that big shot before Curtis gets the takedown, gets to a dominant position, lands the ground and pound, and the ref peels him off? Or if he doesn't, then Blaydes is going to win. But if Pavlovich lands that big shot, it doesn't matter who you are. You're sleeping. That guy's canned hams for fists, 84-inch reach, and just otherworldly power is something that, makes him a very unique challenge to deal with at this level. I am picking Curtis Blaydes, though. And I always believe that when it's wrestling against power, the wrestler, when they have good striking, can take a little bit of that dangerousness away from their opponent when their opponent has to worry about the threat of the takedown. Now, Pavlovich didn't have to worry about that against Tuivasa. He didn't have to worry about that against Derek Lewis. He didn't have to worry about that against Marcelo Golm. He didn't have to worry about that against Maurice Green. And even Shamil Abdurrahimov wrestles a little, but not much. I mean, he's not a great wrestler. And Shamil was like 42 going into that fight anyway, so that was an ass shaving. So I'm going to go with Curtis Blaydes. He's more experienced. He's more well-rounded. I think he can actually hold his own for stretches on the feet here. And whenever Sergey starts to overcommit and really plant and throw is when you're going to see Blaydes change his level. he will get the takedowns, and I think he'll only need 1 or 2 to get the job done and finish this fight. I'm thinking Curtis Blaydes to win this fight by first round knockout. Blaydes. KO, round 1. Tavares, decision. Bobby Green, decision. Iasmin Lucindo, decision. Jeremiah Wells, first round knockout with very little confidence. Ricky Glenn by decision. Montel Jackson by decision. Karol Rosa by decision. Just Junior Tafa, second round KO, even though I've cashed on Usman before. William Gomis by decision. The very handsome Priscila Cachoeira by second round knockout. And Brady Hiestand by decision. Those are the picks, you guys. Let me go through my tracked bets that I have so far for UFC Vegas 71. And we've got them right up here. So we've got 3 money line bets. They're all 1 unit. William Gomis, Priscila Cachoeira, Brady Hiestand, plus 180, plus 167, and plus 170. So I'm taking all plus money shots. If just one of them gets the job done, I'll still lose just a tiny bit of money. But if 2 of them get the job done, it'll be a good day. And then we've got a violence parlay here, which is going to be the fight doesn't start round 3 for the main event, Blaydes versus Pavlovich. Parlayed with the under 2.5 rounds for Cachoeira versus Silva. That comes out to plus 132. I played that for 1 unit on DraftKings Sportsbook. And then I've got the under 1.5 rounds at plus 145 for Wells versus Semelsberger. That brings us to the last order of business of the night, you guys. It's Uncle Weezy's ass shaving of the week. And the only ass that's been getting shaved is mine. All right? We're on a 3-week losing streak. We had stacked ass shavings like flapjacks for like 7 or 8 weeks in a row. And then Chidi Njokuani came out there and not only ruined the ass shaving of the week, but ruined the greasy 4-leg parlay by having a very lackluster, non-committal performance against Albert Duraev. Then the next week we go out and we pick Jacqueline Amarim to shave the ass of Sam Hughes, and she comes very close to finishing the fight in the first, has a massive adrenaline dump, and then has nothing left to offer for the last 10 minutes of the fight. Last week, all 4 of the picks that I had would have failed and failed miserably. I picked Dustin Jacoby to out-kickbox Azamat Murzakanov at range. That didn't happen. So we got to get this one right. And I told you guys, I'm never picking another woman because they always screw me over. And then I'm looking at these fights, man, and they're all close. I mean, these are a lot of close lines. The Pavlovich, Blaydes minus 170. Tavares minus 150. Green's a big favorite, but he's not like an ass shaver, but he could get a knockout. Iasmin Lucindo, she's female, can't do it. Wells Semelsberger, it's a coin flip. I'm not confident about either of those guys winning. Ricky Glenn, minus 162. He's fought twice in the last 4 years. I'm not confident against him, against Giagos. Montel Jackson's minus 600. I can't pick him. Karol Rosa and Dumont's a coin flip. This is a coin flip. This one is close to a coin flip. So what the hell do we do? Can't pick a woman, So who's it going to be, you guys? What are you guys thinking? Let's see what you guys have here in the comments. Let's see. Let's see here. No catch of cheating. She's going to study for this test. I love the UFC matchmakers at Kiwi. We got Gogo Flamingo in the room. Justin saying, is Brogan Walker with experience? Maybe Yahya with a jiu-jitsu ass shave. Cheaty did no bang bang. Yeah, man. That's how I baseball bet Uncle Weezy. Yeah. We got Chris saying, I confess I have bet Blaydes by decision. Dude, that would be a big cash if it hits, man. We got Kiwi in the room. We got Josh Benedict in the room. We got Go in the room. But yeah, you guys, I can't give you a woman, but I can certainly give you somebody handsome. And if I'm giving you somebody handsome, we're going with Priscila Cachoeira to shave the ass of Karine Silva. Look, I know that Karine is going to be live early. I just don't think her striking's that good. I don't think her gas tank is that good. And I think that if Karine Silva doesn't get Priscila Cachoeira out of there in the very first round, Priscila's style of the constant pressure, the right hand right up here by her chin, just waiting to launch right into your face. She keeps it cocked. She keeps it coiled. And when she lands with it, she destroys girls. She melts girls. And Karine does not have a good gas tank, and she's been finished in all but one of her professional losses. So I think somebody like Cachoeira, who's very durable, who has a ton of heart, is going to be able to survive, maybe even stop the takedowns of Karine Silva, because her wrestling's okay, but she's not this great D1 wrestler by any stretch of the imagination. She's very dangerous on the ground, but Priscilla's not going to go there with her, voluntarily. So I think that this is Priscilla's fight. I'm giving you guys a plus money ass shaving of the week. She's available right now at plus 167. And I think stylistically, this is a good read. I'm trying to get out of my 3-week skid on the ass shaving of the week by taking somebody in a contrarian play. And I don't think it should even be contrarian. I think the very handsome, chiseled chin of Priscila Cachoeira is going to bring out the razor here and shave the ass of Karine Killer Silva, who's got a beautiful head of hair, So it's not easy for me to make this pick, but I have to go with my gut. I got to go with my read, and Priscila Cachoeira is your ass shaving of the week. You guys, 52 of you still in here. If you haven't hit that thumbs up already, please do so. I'd like to thank the Carrillo and my guy, who was the other donator? I remember the Carrillo and my guy Yahya. Really appreciate the donations, you guys. I appreciate all of you guys watching the show. Leave a comment below. Yell oi at me. Let me know what your best bet of the week is. And let's try to stack cash tickets like flapjacks for UFC Vegas 71 so that we can not only enjoy these awesome fights, but make it even more enjoyable to watch them by making some money while we do it. Tomorrow, you can catch me at 6 o'clock. No, I believe it'll be actually a couple hours later. We're going to be going live later than usual at 8 or 9 o'clock Central Time for the DFS show on Pub Sports Radio. And then keep an eye out for Ask Weezy. And I'm going to start talking to you guys a lot more about what I'm going to set up for these prize picks content that I will be doing, and underdog content that I will be doing going forward. So appreciate all you guys for hanging out. Hit that thumbs up on your way out. Leave me a comment. Join the Patreon. And come check me out tomorrow right here for Ask Weezy. And check me out on Pub Sports Radio for the DFS show. Have a great night, everybody. Appreciate each and every one of you. God bless each and every one of you. And I will see you all tomorrow. Have a good night.